Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm so happy that you're all here. Thank you all for joining. My name is Izzy. I'm here from Clear Career, and I'm a career coach who's been putting together a lot of these types of events so people can learn about how to break into different types of careers. And I'm here with a really, really exciting special guest tonight. I've got Stefan Palios, one of my good friends that I've met a couple years ago. Actually, almost like 4 years ago to the day. It was Halloween that we met.
You're right. Yeah.
And so I've got Stefan here, who is an expert in the industry at freelancing. He's been freelancing for quite a few years now. How many years have you been freelancing for, Stefan?
Since 2017. So four full years, over 4 years now.
Great. And so I know Stefan through a number of capacities, but right now I know him mostly because we're doing some collaboration together. He's an author of a few different books. One of them is called The 50 Laws of Freelancing. The other one is called Empathetic Sales for Freelancers, right?
That's correct. You got it.
And he is also someone who does a million other things. He's got a content platform called Pulse Blueprint, where he publishes news about technology, and he's got another he's got another newsletter called Remotely Inclined, which is all about remote work and the future of work and stuff like that. So tons of goodies here, and Stefan is going to give us lots of incredible tips today about freelancing and about how to kickstart your business. So, Stefan, why don't I let you kick it off with yourself, do a bit of an introduction, and yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Izzy. And for all the folks that came in on time, as someone who plans events and attends them, I am very grateful to you. And I'm excited for the conversation. As Izzy said, I have written a few things. I'm a freelance writer for startups and venture capitalists, and I'll get a little bit more into my own background as we talk today. But I am very, very excited to be here. I hope you all are too. And as we go through, ask questions in the chat. And Izzy will actually be watching and will probably interrupt me halfway through my presentation to ask your questions. And if not, then we definitely have time at the end. But yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much, Izzy.
Awesome. Yeah, we've got 33 million people watching right now.
Millions and millions. I did not mean to make that political. I'll take that back.
So, yeah, so I'm sure there's going to be more people joining. But first off, where's everybody coming from today? I'd love to get a sense. Open up the chat. Let us know. Are you from Toronto? Are you from the States? Are you from Europe? Where are you coming from? Let us know. Toronto, that's great.
Hometown, love it.
Atlanta, Alex, all the way from Atlanta. Thank you for joining. We've got Carlos from Colombia. We've got Lori from Tampa.
Delaware, Miami.
From Delaware. Wow, lots of people from all over. Thank you so, so much. Oh, and Lisa from Grow Class. Thank you so much, Lisa, for joining.
Ottawa, Win. Also, I'm going to say, if anyone hears meowing, my cat named Lord Arthur Cuddlesworth, we affectionately call him Arthur, is running around the apartment today. So he might jump up on my lap and make an appearance. We'll have to see.
Awesome. So yeah, Stefan, take it away. And I'll be keeping an eye out for any questions in the chat. Please don't be shy. Ask your questions. We'll try to take some of them as we can, but we'll save most of them for the end, okay?
Sounds good. So I'm going to share my screen and dive right in for all the folks here. And any folks coming in late, well, they'll get the recording. So this is what we're going to be covering today. It's 3 relatively simple things. It's identifying a profitable focus. It's setting up your business for success and closing your first and second clients. And all of this, of course, is about kickstarting a profitable freelance business. And my goal, whenever I do any talks, if any of you have been to any of my previous talks, first off, thank you for coming back. But what you will know is that I always focus on practicality. So that means a couple things. One is that through this presentation, after each section, I've got a bit of homework for you, that if you're interested in really kickstarting your own profitable freelance business, here are the tangible things that you have to do. And then the other thing is, as we go through, you're probably going to notice I'm going to say a lot and the slides have a lot. So if you're taking notes, that's awesome. But also I want to say that we're going to send this to you afterward. So don't worry about having to write everything down or trying to screenshot everything. So with that in mind, I will explain why the heck you should be listening to me at all. So as Izzy mentioned, I am a freelance writer for startups and venture capitalists. I've written 2 books, one called The 50 Laws of Freelancing, which was a small business bestseller. And then the second one is a playbook called Empathetic Sales for Freelancers. I publish Remotely Inclined, which is a newsletter for remote entrepreneurs and remote freelancers, because I've been remote myself since I started my business in 2017. And then also my business has been profitable since day one. It's something that I'm really, really proud of. And it was one of those things where I kind of stumbled into it and got a little bit lucky at the beginning. And now that I've had the chance to look back and realize what I've done, I've been able to help some other folks set up their freelance businesses as well. And that, of course, is what we are here to talk about today. So I first want to level set and say, look, freelancing is a business. Specifically, it's a B2B relationship, business to business. You might be an individual person, but as a freelancer, when you go to market, when you're talking to people, when you're trying to close clients, you are presenting as a business. And so everything that I'm going to be talking about today is not only from my own experience building my own freelance business, but also my experience working in sales, marketing, research, and customer success for other different companies as well, helping them go to market as a business, because that's really, really what we all are. As humans, we are both our own employee and our own boss, but the entity that we have is a business. So what does that mean? Step 1, you got to find a profitable focus. And I call this getting selfish, because as you'll see right now, 2 out of 3 things when it comes to picking a focus are actually going to be about you. So I'll go into these all more in depth, but the kind of 3-way Venn diagram that you want to think of is starting with what you're good at, and we'll dive into what that means and how to figure it out. Figuring out what people are actually spending money on, because if you don't have money, you don't have a business. And then also thinking about who you can access, which I'll focus especially on the very, very earliest levels of access. So I'm not expecting you to have multi-$1,000 marketing budgets or be the most well-connected person in the room. Just have a few tangible things. So with that in mind, when you have all that combined, you get to your focus. Sometimes this is called a niche, but I actually had the word niche in this presentation and I changed it to focus because the thing that I don't like about the word niche is that it implies it's small or implies that you can't expand, that you're a niche freelancer. Whereas a focus, I like better because it gives you a foundation. It justifies your prices, which we all want to do, and we're going to talk about later. And it gives you more to grow from and say, I focus on this and I do that, as opposed to, oh, well, my niche is this, so I can't do that. So first things first, let's talk about what you're good at. I asked myself and I ask other people 3 questions that are on this slide that you can see when helping to identify their focus. And the first thing is, what skills do you have? And what I've done for myself when I have thought about all of the ways that I work in my business and what I've helped other folks do is say, look, write everything. Can you write? Can you speak? Can you design? What technology platforms do you have proficiency in? What can you teach? Anything. Just look at the direct skills that you have. So I'll use myself as an example. When I introduced myself, I said I'm a freelance writer, and that's correct. My bread and butter is writing. Most of my clients are writing clients. However, I also have some content strategy skills. I have some early level SEO skills. I won't claim to be an expert, but I know a thing or two. I know a thing or two about community building. I'm good at the editing side of things. As an experienced writer, I've gotten better at coaching junior writers, which sometimes my clients need when they have someone on staff. So it's not just the direct thing that you want to do or sell, but all of the skills that you have that either will become things you make money on or things that are value adds for your clients that justify the rates for your primary good. In my case, for example, writing. The second question is to take those skills you have and think about outcomes you can produce. So again, I'll use myself as an example and say, if I say I'm a writer, what can I actually write? I know that I am pretty good at writing blogs and feature interviews. I know that I'm okay at writing social media copy and email copy. I know that I'm pretty decent at doing advertising editing copy. I'm not the best at writing it myself, but I can edit if somebody brings me what they've got. And you want to go through that process with every skill that you have and say, what can you actually produce? So when someone says, hey, can you do this for me? You can either say yes or no. And then the third question is, what can you do now? And this is something that can sometimes trip folks up because, if I say I'm a writer, I could technically write at this very second. I'm just a little bit preoccupied talking to all you wonderful people. But what I mean by what can you do now is the idea of, if somebody hired you, could you work on a reasonable timeline and actually produce something now? So for example, if you are just starting a coding bootcamp, you do not have coding skills right now. You will in the near term, but it's not something that you would work to sell right now. If you think about closing your first client and kickstarting your business, it might be something that you say, okay, that's going to be on the list. I know it's coming, but what am I going to do right now? And then, of course, the reminder that I want to say is freelancing is all about execution. When a company hires a freelancer, they're trying to get something done. And it's usually done because that task either has some specialized skill, so they need an outside person. It's a task that is critical, but there's not enough of it to justify an internal hire, or it's something that is important, but not strategic enough to the business to justify an internal hire. So just remember that when you're thinking of what you're good at is you want to produce things. That's the core reason why freelancers get hired.
I got a quick question for you.
Yeah, let's talk.
So let's talk about, you mentioned that, okay, you're not an expert and not claiming to be an expert at SEO, but you're still using it as freelance. So what about all the people here who might not be an expert and like the top of their field in something specific, but they are good at it and they have helped lots of people with it? How would you go about talking and going about it from that perspective?
So the way that I have phrased it is, what am I strong at versus what am I capable of? So I personally am strong at writing articles and I'm capable of SEO. But the other part that you mentioned in your question that I think is important is you said, well, what if they've helped other people? If you've got demonstrated outcomes and demonstrated value, then I don't care what if you don't think you're good at it, maybe you've got a bit of imposter syndrome, to be honest. Because if you can say, I've proven that I have delivered value, that's what's important. Don't necessarily position yourself as a master. Maybe don't claim that you're the best SEO consultant in the world, as an example. But if you are confident in your ability and you can actually back it up with results, then I say you're great. You're in a great spot to go to market. And if you are in a position where you're pretty confident in your ability, but you don't yet have the opportunity to back up your results, I won't give away too much because I'm going to talk about it a little bit more later in the presentation, but there is a lot that you can do to show that you're capable of doing something without having a specific client having paid you or previous experience in a formal job way. So there are ways around that if you're pretty confident in your skill. And then, of course, if you've delivered value, absolute win.
Awesome. Buckle up, folks. There's some good
Buckle
stuff
up. There's
coming
more.
down the road.
I did warn you that I would be talking a lot. But also, if I am going too fast and folks have questions, do ask, because Izzy will interrupt me. He has no problem doing that. So the second part is what people are actually spending money on. So obviously, if you don't have budget, you don't have a business. That's why I level set at the very beginning of this. It's not a hobby. Even if you love it, and truly, like, I very much enjoy writing and I love telling some of the stories that I am telling for my clients. I get to talk about really cool people doing really cool things. I can't say all of them because I work on ghostwriting, but I get to interview some brilliant entrepreneurs and I love that. But at the end of the day, it's a business. I need to get paid for my work and they're going to get value out of my work, so they should be paying for that value. So how do we talk about money without being indelicate? It's not very ladylike to talk about money. So the three ways that I have realized are helpful in getting the money conversation out front without being aggressive and without saying like, well, what are you going to pay me? Is to ask people about their problems, because fundamentally people spend money to solve problems. They won't necessarily spend a lot of money and they won't necessarily spend to solve every problem, but you can rest assured people don't really spend money without having a problem to solve. So that's step number one. And that can be as simple as asking, hey, Izzy, what are the biggest challenges you're facing right now? It's a common question that I've used that you should absolutely steal and ask people. You'd be really surprised how open people get when you ask what challenges they're facing. The other question that I've asked that gets people to talk about their problems is, what are you accountable for? I've asked this of executives and other people that control budgets, but are very often not, they're not so specific in their roles that you can say, oh, well, I'm the person who's supposed to write, so I need someone to support me in that. When you're talking to an executive, it's something more like, well, I need to increase profits 20% this quarter, or something like that, insert corporate buzzword here. And by asking them what they're accountable for, you can then start to dig a little further and say, okay, interesting. What initiatives are you working on in order to bolster profits right now? Or what obstacles do you have that are stopping you from meeting your goals? That's number one. Number two is you can ask about budgets. And this is usually something that is going to be personality dependent, whether you're very forward with it or you wait a little bit. I know when I started my business, I basically said, I can write and I will write anything you're willing to pay me for. And to the point where I was at a networking event in mid 2017 when I had just started the business. And I said, oh, I'm a freelance writer. And they said, what do you do? And my response was, well, what do you have budget for? And depending on your personality, if you want to do that, I don't think that was the most professional thing I've ever done, but the person I was talking to said he at least appreciated my honesty. But asking about budgets can come in a little bit later. So when you know about problems, you can very politely say, oh, that's interesting. Have you allocated any resources to solving that problem? Is a really fancy way of saying, do you have any budget? And then you can continue to prod it and all the way down if you are talking to a prospect, and we're going to talk about sales agendas in like 10 slides. If you are talking to a prospect and they're like, I'm loving this, I absolutely have this pain, it's super irritating, you can more directly say very honestly and politely that absolutely, have you allocated budget to solving this problem? So asking about budgets is a great way to bring the money conversation up. Many people will dodge it and say, oh, well, that depends on your rates. And that's okay, but it does set the expectation that this is a monetary relationship. And it will also save you a lot of time that I know that I've had a lot of wasted time on calls where people have said, oh, I really want to hire you. Oh, I don't actually have budget though. Would you do it for exposure? And the short answer is a polite no. The third one is to ask other freelancers. So if you're seeing someone who is making money doing a certain type of freelancing, you can safely assume that that type of freelancing people have budgets for. Now, that doesn't always mean it will directly translate to you. So for example, I am a writer. I work with tech startups on their content marketing efforts. Content marketing is a big part of tech startup marketing, and so there's budget. Now, the government, for instance, probably doesn't have the same type of budget for content. So just because I write blogs doesn't mean I can sell to anyone, and doesn't necessarily mean that the budgets that go from my clients will go from yours, but it's a really, really solid indicator. So those are the three things to get started figuring out what people are actually spending money on. And then we will also talk about pricing, because how you show up in the market to capture the money that people are spending is critical.
Are there any opportunities that you would do for exposure?
The short answer is I do my own things for exposure. So I publish on my LinkedIn, because if you hit a relevant hashtag, you can get thousands of views. I publish on my blog, although that's not actually for free because I make a few bucks on ads. And so when I think about exposure, I think that personally, I get more out of doing things for myself than doing things for somebody else. Because unfortunately, if you start doing free things for other people, you set precedents that you do things for free. Mm-hmm. The caveat to that will be, if you are choosing to give away things for free from a lead generation perspective, where, I write my newsletter for free and it's actually brought in business, didn't mean it to, but it did. That is fine as long as it is not your core business. So for instance, I am more willing to speak at a conference for free to meet new people because that's speaking and that's not my core business. I will not write a blog post for a conference for free, for instance.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the last part is who you can actually access. So if you have someone, there's money in this world, billions of dollars every single day changes hands, if not trillions, but certainly tons and tons of money every single day changes hands. But you can't get at that money if you can't get at the people with the money. So when you think about starting your freelance business, thinking about who you can access, the fancy term for this is it's part of go-to-market or GTM, if you've ever seen that in a business blog. But it starts with who do you know, your network, your reputation, and then also what you enjoy. So when I think about network, there's the people you directly know, but also the people you have the opportunity to meet. Now, we're in COVID, so there are no in-person events. But for instance, when I started my business, I didn't know anybody. My network was quite small. I expanded it by going to every single meetup that I possibly could. And I would volunteer to get in for free. So that way I didn't have to spend money. We think about reputation, think about all of the things you've done in your life. So your previous jobs, any volunteering that you've done, even like character level things. Have you helped somebody that can maybe speak to your character? And I'll show you how to leverage that later to actually close a client. And then also the third one is what you enjoy. Now, this is a step in a different system that I've built out called building an inbound funnel as a freelancer, where just thinking about the things you enjoy doing, your hobbies and the communities around those hobbies, or the things that you feel are valuable for you. So for example, I actually started Remotely Inclined as a newsletter, not because I wanted content lead generation, but because I wanted to talk about remote work. And I wasn't really that worried if nobody subscribed. I had an idea that people would, especially because in 2020, remote work has been a really hot topic. But I did it purely to say, there have got to be other people like me that run remote businesses, and I just want to write content for them. So that kind of thing, take a moment and just ask yourself, do you enjoy this? That could give you some wild access. One really, really, really cool experience was I was doing some writing a few years ago on diversity and inclusion. And for those who don't know me, I'm the co-founder of a couple of LGBT nonprofits here in Toronto, as well as in the United States when I lived there, excuse me. And so I started writing about diversity and inclusion. And out of nowhere, I got a reader who said, I love your writing. You should be publishing this in Huffington Post, which at the time, a few years ago, HuffPo was like the premier. Getting published in HuffPo was a big freaking deal. I was like, frankly, I don't know how to get into Huffington Post. And she said, oh, well, I know Ariana Huffington. Here's her email. And I'm like,
no way, really?
I literally was like, what? And I wouldn't have said, excuse me, because Pitch Perfect wasn't out at that time. But I was like, are you kidding? She's like, no, this is Ariana's email. No guarantee that she'll respond, but you can at least pitch her. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And I did. And she actually responded a day later, copying her editorial director and said, I love your story, Stefan. I want you to publish it. And she gave me access to Huffington Post, and I got published on Huffington Post. So awesome. That kind of just doing what you enjoy. Now, I will say I'd been writing for months before that and had been honing my writing skills for years before that. I don't mean to claim it was an overnight success, but it can happen. And a similar thing, I was talking about, again, diversity and inclusion, but diversity in tech. And then an actress by the name of Angelica Ross found my tweets and we connected. We worked on a research project together. And then she invited me to speak with her at Dreamforce in San Francisco. And Dreamforce is one of the world's largest tech conferences. So
Salesforce Dreamforce?
Yeah, Salesforce is Dreamforce.
Wow.
Back in 2016, I think it was. Yeah, 2016. I flew down to LA. We drove up to SF and I spoke. So all of that to say, like, really freaking cool things can happen that I had zero idea were going to happen, just by embracing what you enjoy and kind of plugging that line. And whenever anyone questions why you're doing it, you say, because I freaking like it. It has directly led to business opportunities for me. And as a freelancer, because your work is so tied to your person, I know that it will help other people. I've seen it help other people.
You know, everyone here, I think this is such a key slide. And I tell a lot of this similar things to the students that are in my career coaching programs is right now, you know, you have a network, you have friends, family, neighbors, parents, uncles, all kinds of people that you can talk to. And unless they know what you do, they can't help you. So a lot of the time, right now, you're the only person who's working for yourself to try to get the opportunities you want. But the more people you tell, the more seeds you plant, and the more people they can reach and bring those opportunities back to you. So do not let go of that opportunity of networking and just telling people what you're looking for, and be specific.
Yes, and you queued me up perfectly, because the way to be specific is taking your focus and turning it into a one-liner. And I highlighted the formula. It's I am a type. Oh, Arthur's coming. This is Arthur, everybody. It's I am a type of freelancer for a type of client. So when I introduced myself, I said I'm a freelance writer for startups and venture capitalists. Now, if you have been listening to me so far, you know that's not all I do. However, the tip is you want to keep it focused on the gist of everything, not actually the whole thing. Because if you look at the right side, a one-liner has to be easy to remember and easy to repeat. As Izzy said, you can't plant those seeds if you are confusing everybody. And, I had this problem when I started my business, where I'd say, oh, I'm a freelancer. I write and edit and strategy and social and whatever. And so that just did not work for me. And it didn't get me much. But when you plant the seed with a one-liner that is easy to remember, easier to repeat, and really is just about the gist, it gets people there so that they get curious, and then you can explain what you really do. And this leads us into section 1, homework. Identify your focus and craft your one-liner. So take that combination of what are your skills and what are people paying for? Do some research on that to learn more. Oh, Arthur's coming up a little again. And then the other one is figuring out who you have access to, and then craft that into one simple statement that you are a type of freelancer for a type of client.
We've got Patrick Wu in the comments saying, I do things for money was my tongue-in-cheek phrase for people.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. It's important.
But yeah, for people in the comments, let us know what your types of one-liners are, and we can take a peek at them. And also tweet us. Tweet at Stefan Palios, and tell them what your one-liner is, and we can take a look, and we can give you some advice and all that kind of stuff.
I will happily respond. And now we'll kick off part 2, business infrastructure. Arthur is very upset with me. I don't know if anyone can actually hear him meowing on the chat today, but he's not happy. I'm in his spot. However, business infrastructure. The first thing we're going to talk about is a website. It really is just table stakes. You've got to have one, because prospects are going to look you up. Anything you do, any advice that I give you about later on blogging and sales and inbound and anything, they're going to look you up, and your website has to be your ally. So simple things. Use no-code builders. If you're not a tech person, which I am not, I majored in sociology. The best thing I can do is a sum function in Excel. But there are 2 builders that are really easy to use. One is called card.co, and you can see the URL in the bullet points there. And then the other one is WordPress. It's the global standard for a reason. You can either use a free template or buy one. They're not expensive. If that's something you don't want to do, that's fine. I personally recommend Card because the pro version is $19 per year, whereas WordPress hosting can be $10 to $20 a month. Now, Card also does not have a blog attached. So if you do want to host your own blog and not use a third-party platform, and we'll talk about that later, then WordPress is your better option. But the key is to make sure that it is just simple copy. So you can see on mine there, I just say, I'm Stefan. I was featured in some cool places. And that's that. If you continue to scroll, it's still a very simple page that I don't have an example of here, but if you just go to stefanpalios.com, you can check it out. The one thing I'll say about that is it was a standard template on Card. I loaded it up, I said copy, I inserted my information, and I published it. It took me about an hour and a half. So critical thing. I really do mean that. It is so important to own your own name online. And if you want to buy your name, so I own stefanpalios.com. I use Google domains. This is not an advertisement for them. I'm just telling you what I use. And it's $17 Canadian for the year. And then I think in USD, it's 15 USD for the year. if for the folks coming in from the United States. Second one, legalese and necessary administration. So unfortunately, being a business gives you a lot of privileges, but it also gives you a few responsibilities. One of them is that you have to register your business. So this is going to vary state to state, province to province, but there are usually pretty easy ways to set up a simple sole proprietorship, which is how I recommend you start your freelance business. There are many different platforms to do it for you. In Canada, there's owner.co, OWNR. There's another one in the United States that I apologize, I'm blanking on the name of, but we'll look it up and send it in the follow-up. And that is just critical. You need a legal entity with the government that you are stating, I am doing this business and I am going to make money come hell or high water. The one other piece is that in Canada, for example, you don't have to apply for a tax ID number, an HST number, unless you're making over $30,000 a year. I personally recommend registering for an HST number and collecting and remitting HST from day one. One, because it makes you a little bit more professional. Corporations expect to pay HST. And the other one is, I like the idea of starting how you mean to go on. If you want your business to make more than $30,000 a year at some point, then you should operate it like it is, and that requires HST. The last two, the other two, task management and banking and invoicing, are actually pretty simple. I use Airtable for task management. I use their free version. So I'm a big fan of pay as you grow instead of pay as you go, because as a freelancer, it's a nightmare sometimes. Other platforms that are very powerful to help you manage your tasks as a freelancer are something like Tisper or Venture L. And these are just platforms that some of them are paid, some are free or free tiers that can help you with a lot of different things and getting useful stuff done. But if you do have zero budget, Airtable or Trello is a basic task management that you can kind of make into anything. Super helpful there. And then invoicing in particular, this is basically, to use the fancy banking term, setting up your payment rails. And that basically just means, how do you send someone an invoice and then how do you collect a payment? There are tons of platforms out there. The most popular ones are like a QuickBooks or Xero. I personally use Wave. It's a Canadian company founded in Toronto, but more specifically, it's free to use for the accounting software. So again, if you're starting with nothing, sign up for a Wave account. It's free. You can send invoices for free, manage your receipts for free, do all your accounting for free. And the only thing they charge you is a payment processing fee to accept payments, which you don't have to do. It's a choice. And the fees are basically the same as like a QuickBooks or a FreshBooks or a Xero, all of which also charge a monthly fee. So that was a lot, I know, but the reason I put it all in one is because it's that painful, tear the Band-Aid off, just register the business. You can do it online in an hour, set up a Trello or an Airtable or a Tisper or a Venture L account, and then call your bank, open up a bank account, and get yourself a Wave account or QuickBooks account. The bank account side, I say this as just, again, as a business, keep your business revenue separate from your personal bank accounts. Even if you're going to do a sole proprietorship where the corporation accepts all the money and then it immediately transfers to your personal bank account, keep a separate stream, because you want to keep all receipts, track any business expenses, which, rule of thumb, are any expenses that are only incurred because you have a business. So for instance, if you buy yourself a work laptop that you only do work on, that's an expense. And that's just going to help you with taxes down the line, which a little bit out of my purview, a little bit out of this presentation, but it's all important to just set this all up, get it done. It is really a once and done situation. And thus we get to homework number 2. Now this one is going to be intense. Again, I apologize, but this is a once and done. Get your website live. You can of course update it as often as you want. Using WordPress or Card are two that I would recommend in terms of ease of use, getting it set up, and both are inexpensive. Register your business. You can do it DIY. Most websites, if you Google, register a business and then your state or your province, will take you directly to the government website where you can submit it. Most registration fees are anywhere from $50 to $100, and save that receipt because, again, it's an expense that you can deduct off your taxes. The other one, open your invoicing to make sure that you can send an invoice and accept payment and charge tax. We all like that. Wave is free, and then a small business bank account. Every bank that I've seen, I admit I have not researched all of them, but the major banks all have some form of micro small business bank account that is either free or about $5 to $7 a month. So all told, you're going to spend 50 to $100 to register your business. It's well worth it, I promise. And then $5-ish a month to have your bank account. That is all you need to spend money on. Card has a free version. WordPress has a free version. So if you're coming at this with truly you cannot afford to spend money, I empathize, totally get it. The only investment you've got to make is really that registration fee, because everything else like payment processing is purely based on whether you make money or not. So if you're not earning any money, you're not paying anything.
So everybody, you'll be getting these slides and all of these resources by email after. So don't worry. You can also screenshot this if you want. I also pasted some of the links for Wave accounting and for Owner in the chat. So you can grab those there too if you like.
Splendid. Izzy is just making my life so much easier. And so I want to spend the remainder of our time together talking about getting a sale. So at this point, you have who you are and what you're up to, and you have everything that you need. So the moment someone says yes, you are ready to go. So that was what the goals of phase one or step one and step two are. So for myself, I am a freelance writer for startups and venture capitalists. I have my small business bank account. I have my Wave account to send invoices and accept payments. I use Airtable to manage my business, and the government of Canada knows who I am, which frankly they knew anyway, but here we are. So now we're actually going to get to the 6-ish steps to getting money in the door, to getting someone to say, absolutely, let's go. So first one, we are going to tell everyone leveraging our one-liner. We are going to update LinkedIn, Twitter, your website. If you have a website already, make sure it's updated. If not, build one. Your personal introductions. I want to come back to that. Letting friends and professional connections know, politely though, don't spam them. Just send a quick notice. And you can kind of gut check to only send it to people that you think actually really want that kind of update from you. But at the same time, be bold. You never know. The other one being online communities for freelancers and solopreneurs like a Hacker Nest, or joining the Venture L Slack channel. I'm in that community and it's a lot of fun folks. And then anywhere else that you exist online publicly. So maybe not your Reddit, because we all have our, troll Reddit accounts. But if you exist in another community, make sure that that is updated, because we want consistency. We want to make sure that anytime anyone hears of you, thinks of you, Googles you, they're getting the same consistent message that you are a certain type of freelancer for a certain type of client, because that's going to help you so much. Jumping back into the personal introduction, I copied a screenshot of a tweet that I sent as part of Freelance Chat, which by the way is another really cool community. It's Thursdays at noon Eastern time, and it's a lot of fun. It's some very new freelancers who are super early on, and then some freelancers who have been at this game for 20 to 30 years, who completely put me to shame with my 4 years of experience. And it is such a great conversation. Everyone is so open to share their learnings, share their advice, tips, and the questions are always really good. Hosted by Michelle Garrett, who is at PRIsUs on Twitter, and we'll share that link. But the personal introduction side, you can see in that screenshot, I used my one-liner. That was it. I just said, I'm a freelance writer for startups and VCs. And then at that moment, my book had actually just gone live. So I also said, I'm the author of the 50 Laws of Freelancing. And you can start to play a little bit based on what the audience wants from you. So in the Freelance Chat instance, I always talk about my book and I always introduce myself as an author. It's actually led to a couple sales, which is really, really cool. But in general, just is part of that community. Otherwise, I'll just use my one-liner. But this is step one, because once you have all of the back-end infrastructure, we need the front-end message to be consistent so that anything else you do trails back to the same core message and basically gets all these other platforms to do some of your own branding for you. So if we're good on that, we'll move on to credibility markers.
Just a quick question before you move on. When and where did you say freelance chats happen?
Oh, hashtag freelance chat. So it's on Twitter. If you're not familiar with Twitter chats, they are just live. They're kind of like AMAs, structured AMAs on Twitter. And Freelance Chat is Thursdays at noon Eastern time. So noon New York, Toronto time. And it's hosted by Michelle Garrett. But if you look up #Freelance Chat, you'll find the conversations and then you can join in. And it is, different features every week. Just today we talked about, what do we talk about? Burnout and giving back and learning when to say no. And then, last time we talked about sales, and another time we talked about growth. And so there are different topics every week. And
Nice.
now we get to our credibility markers. So credibility markers are the second tier of making sure that your branding is done for you. And more specifically, making sure that you can stand your ground, which is going to be really crucial when you're brand new. Because when you get more experience, you'll start to get clients who say, I want to hire you because I heard that you were good from someone I trust. That is an amazing feeling, but it takes a little bit of time to cultivate. And even when you're experienced, if you want to get net new clients, try something new and expand your business, you need to make sure you have these credibility markers. So those are going to be testimonials. They're going to be your brand association, portfolios or work samples, professional history, as well as demonstrated outcomes. And this is where we jump back all the way to the very first slide around knowing what you're good at. If you can demonstrate what you've done, well, heck, go to market and say you're good at it because you can prove it. When you're brand new, I get that this list might seem odd, where it's like, well, I'm new. How am I supposed to have a testimonial? Or, I don't have any clients yet. How am I supposed to have work samples? Now, there are a few ways to get around this, because if you look back again to freelancing is about execution, you just have to show that you're capable of doing something. You don't necessarily have to show at the very start that you're capable of selling your ability to do that to someone else. Because the difference between, for instance, posting a guest article on Thrive Global or on my blog, Pulse Blueprint, versus writing for a paid client, the only difference is you have sold somebody on that skill. That doesn't mean you aren't capable of doing it just because you did it from a lead gen perspective. By writing on Thrive Global, you're demonstrating that you can write, and therefore you can use that as an example when someone says, hey, I'm interested in hiring you. Have you ever written an article that looks like this? That was also something I've done throughout my career. Whenever someone said, oh, have you written this kind of article? I would go and write that kind of article, publish it for myself, and then send them the example and say, yes, I have. Here is my example. The other thing you can do is writing your own content. If you're not a writer, even just posting things on social media and joining the conversation can help you prove your credibility, because it will show that you can explain something. So let's say you're a designer or you are a freelancer in another industry completely. By engaging on social media, you can demonstrate your knowledge. If you're not a writer and you're a talker and you can talk through your ideas really well, you might consider posting a public Yak link, yak.com. It is a voice note app, but they allow you to share things publicly. Now, if that's not your vibe, you're not a writer at all, that's okay. You can ask for testimonials from any volunteer work that you've done. You can ask for character testimonials from people that you've worked with in the past. So, for example, they don't have to say, I hired Stefan to do this specific project and he was awesome. It could just be, I've worked with Stefan for years and he is one of the most dependable people I've ever met. That is a great character testimonial, because you have to remember when you're selling, and we'll go to the agenda slide in a couple, you're not just convincing someone you can do the job. You're also convincing someone that you are not going to ghost them, because there is an interesting power dynamic in the freelancing world where you'll often talk about how companies have skipped out on bills and used their power against freelancers. And that's unfortunately true. It can happen. Thankfully, not that often. But there's also the other side, where there are some sketchy freelancers out there, frankly. And they are somebody who will, say everything perfect in the sales call and then produce horrible work or completely ditch and ghost completely. So the character testimonials are going to speak to those concerns. And if you know that they're coming, and now you know because I told you, you can preempt them. And this kind of thing can help you. The other thing to do is personal metrics. So if you are the type of person that enjoys what you are doing for freelancing and therefore does it for fun. So for example, if you are a freelancer that helps people set up social media accounts, and you've just helped a few friends because you really like doing that. Or you're a freelancer that builds Shopify stores, and so you built a Shopify store. Or you're a freelance writer and you write your own blog. Know those metrics. Know what you've done. Know that you can say, I've written over 1,000 articles that have been read millions of times by different people. And when you have that to back you up, you can create this air that you are far more established than you are. Because again, in the freelancing world, if you're able to execute on something, it's fine. You don't necessarily have to have been paid every single time or been paid your current rate just for that to be accomplished.
One quick thing here. When you talk about guest posting, isn't that the same as working for free?
Yes and no. So I would say don't guest post without a reason. So for instance, Thrive Global is a pretty strong brand. If you start trending on Thrive Global, you can get tons and tons of eyeballs. With Pulse Blueprint, we allow backlinks, which is something that a lot of other media does not allow. So the way to do it, first off, if you are not a writer, then guest posting is definitely not doing it for free because it's not your core work. Now, in my case, I am a writer. So for all my fellow writers out there, why would you do this? So it could be to demonstrate your knowledge. So you get to say that to demonstrate your knowledge and show that you have actually contributed to the broader conversation on a mainstream platform, or to show simply that you are published on a different platform, which can be a huge credibility booster. When you send a work sample to a potential client and it's hosted on someone else's website instead of your own blog, there is a difference there. I don't know that there should be necessarily. I'm not making a claim either way, just statement of fact that there is. But then the other side is you can also use it to reference your own work to increase the SEO credibility of your work. So if you have a blog, for instance, that is the ultimate guide to building Shopify stores, and then you write a guest post on Pulse Blueprint of, the top 3 things to think of for your Shopify store, where you link back to your blog, and then you write on Thrive Global 5 ways to make your Shopify store less anxiety inducing for customers, because Thrive Global is all about wellness, and link back. You are sending signals through the Google that you have a really high authority post. So as long as you have a reason behind your guest posting, it's not the same as doing free work, because you are getting something out of it. It's a value exchange argument where for instance, on Pulse Blueprint, I would get an extra blog on my platform. That's awesome. Might make 5 cents in ad revenue. And you would get a backlink, or you get to demonstrate that you've been published in a different media outlet, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is basically if you want to do something and publish an article for yourself, and you have the opportunity to do it for a whole new audience and bring people back to you, that's a good reason for you to do something. But if you're going to go and publish an article for another company where your name isn't going to be mentioned at all, then don't do that for free, because that doesn't help you at all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other part is, if someone is asking you to create the content, then they need your skill and there's a reason to charge. And maybe you'll charge a little bit less if your name is on it, because then you get a little boost. But there's also an argument for charging more if your name is on it, because that brand is benefiting from your credibility. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit different when you guest post to media that is more news driven, or guest blogging where you do kind of share for share to help each other grow. But there has to be an evident value exchange on both sides. Whereas if you are being told what to write and told to create something that someone else wants, absolutely charge, especially if they're asking for it to be ghost written, because at that point it's just straight up labor.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then initial outbound sales. So once you have your beautiful, consistent internet messaging that everyone knows that you're a freelancer now, and then you've also got some great credibility markers about places you've been published or something to that effect, let's talk about getting some drumming up sales. The first one is friends and network. So this is something that I want you to put a pin, because you're going to actually use the information from the next slide. But this is just making sure that your network is aware of what you're up to. and making sure that they know, like Izzy said, everyone has some sort of network. It may not be the strongest, and don't worry if it's not, because you can build that. But as long as you're clear on what you're up to, you have the opportunity for other people to give you some business. The other two pieces here, recruiters and job postings. If you are someone that is active on LinkedIn, you can actually now indicate, I am open to opportunities and I am open to freelance opportunities specifically. So they just updated that. Definitely something to do to let recruiters know, because often a freelance job will not necessarily get posted. Sometimes it will just be a share from the individual. So I got a client once where the VP of marketing said, hey, I'm looking for a freelancer. And that was just a LinkedIn post. That was not a job posting. And one of my own connections, who's in my LinkedIn network, saw that my profile said, open to freelancing, and tagged me and said, hey, Stefan, is this something that would be good for you? And then I connected with them and ended up actually closing the client. And I didn't really know the person that recommended me all that well, but because it came through this network of, like, I said I was open, and then a recruiter saw it and then tagged me, the person who ended up becoming my client actually thought quite highly of me and was like, oh, you come recommended. And I'm like, yeah, by this person I've never met, but they know that I'm a freelancer. And I'll explain why that happened and how that can happen for you in the next slide. But the last thing I want to touch on for some initial outbound sales is job postings, where if you see a job posting, sometimes in the fine print, it will say open to freelance or contract. Sometimes it will say part-time job, which kind of just means freelance or contract. And in other cases, again, be bold, reach out to them and say, hey, are you actually open to freelancing either permanently for this role or as a stopgap? And that's something that you can do specifically for job postings that have been open for quite some time. If you see a job posting that's been open for 3 to 5 weeks and is still there, and it's within your skill set, but you don't want a full-time job, say, hey, I'm a freelancer, I do this. Would you be open to a freelancing contract? Or rather, do you have any immediate needs that we could solve on a freelance basis while you continue the job hunt? And you can be very clear that you're not really looking for a full-time job. Sometimes companies will say no, and that's fine. But sometimes they'll say, oh, you know what, that's actually really interesting. Why don't we talk about it? And that has actually happened to me as well, where a recruiter friend reached out to me and said, hey, can you please share this job posting? And I said, I don't mean to usurp this, but I do this. They wanted content writing. I said, look, I'm a writer. Are you open to freelance? And I said, interesting. We weren't thinking about that. Why don't I ask the recruiter? And it turned out that the recruiter was totally open. It's just that they were used to the concept of a full-time job posting and therefore put it out there. But by asking, I closed another client. Nice. So those are the three there. And I'm also realizing I am talking way too much. So we're going to try and get through the next little bit and have some time for questions. The one here I want to point out is asking for referrals the right way. So this is literally a script that you can take. On the right side, please ignore the left side. But so many people start with the left side. They will say, hey, do you have overflow business? Hey, do you know anyone that you can refer to me? Unfortunately, this is fundamentally asking for a favor. It's fundamentally asking someone to spend their social capital for you. Some people will be willing to do that, but by and large, fewer people will, and it will not last long. Eventually, people will get tired, even the people who love you and support you the most. Instead, say, hey, if you know anyone that is your ideal client that's facing a problem you solve, I'd be happy to chat with them. For example, hey, Izzy, if you know any startups that are struggling with content, I'd be happy to chat with them. I'll always take the call, then, give a proposal. If they don't want to work with me, that's fine. If they do, that's wonderful. But with this ask, you're actually making the other person the hero. Because if I go to Izzy and say, can you refer me to someone? I'm asking him to spend his social capital on me. But if I say, hey, Izzy, do you know a startup? If you know a startup that's struggling with content, I'd be happy to chat. He then runs into his friend who's founded a startup, is saying, crap, my blog is horrible. And Izzy gets to go, hey, I can solve your problem. I know a guy. Why don't I introduce you? No guarantees, but he might be able to help. And then if I end up working with that person gets their problem solved. Izzy is a freaking hero because he solved that person's problem and I make money. It's a win-win-win. I forgot an extra win on this slide. There's just so much winning. But make sure that when you're asking, you're positioning it as an offer to help. If you have some sort of free offering, like a free course that you've developed or a blog post that solves that specific problem, send them there. And if not, say, I'll take the intro call, I'll take the sales call. But by making it very clear that you are saying if your ideal customer is facing the problem you solve, it implicitly becomes, again, a sales and business conversation. So you don't have to worry as much about wasted time. It will happen a little bit, but the wins will far outweigh the losses and wasted time.
Great tips.
Yeah. Then we talk about pricing. This one can get, we could do a whole presentation on pricing. So I just want to cover 4 main pricing levers if you are totally new to this. The first one is to take a look at some market rates. So what are folks doing? That can come, you can do some Googling. There's some research on that. Honestly, Twitter is pretty good because Twitter is a more conversational platform. So if you're Googling, average price X, you're going to get people who have asked that and then whole threads of people responding, and you can get a sense of what people think. The next one is a desired hourly rate. Now, this one can be a little funky because obviously we would all love to make thousands of dollars an hour, and that may not be the case. Add a little bit for taxes and expenses because you never know. Demonstrated experience. If you know, for instance, that you're an SEO consultant that can quadruple someone's blog traffic and that's going to land 50% more revenue, you can definitely start to price based on that, because if you can demonstrate value that you provide for someone, you can say, look, I'm capturing some of that value just straight up. And if you don't want to pay it, someone else will because I can prove it. And then the other one is scope of work. This is a little harder to do when you get to the bulk discount side for services. However, something to consider, especially because there is a lot of fixed time effort that goes down over time with a long-term client. The other thing I'll note is prices can and should change, but you don't want to be taken advantage of when you're brand new. So that's why I recommended at the very beginning of this to stick with what you're demonstrably good at so that you can keep your prices fair as you build your business and figure out your broader positioning. All right, we are near the end. Sales calls. The agenda on the left side here. I'm not sure if folks here have been part of sales calls before, if they've worked before, but this is the agenda that I have always found helpful. I will start a conversation with like, hey, Izzy, how's it going? Like, anything fun and exciting happening this week? It's my favorite question to ask because most people don't ask it. And sometimes you hear about some really, really cool things. Other times, unfortunately, you hear about bad things, but at least you start to forge a human connection. I will then say something along the lines of, hey, so for this call, I'm looking to get to know your business a little bit more, learn why you're interested in content in the first place, because content is what I do. I'll happy to answer questions about myself, and then let's see if there's a fit to work together. It's just that those 4 things in a very simple proposal near the beginning of the call to show that I'm going to take charge, but I'm also not interested in talking the whole time. I want them to talk to me about their business, their needs, and then see if there's a fit, because I don't want to assume. Frankly, they may not want to work with me and I may not want to work with them. And then the other side is once you have that call, you go through that agenda. They go, you know what, Stefan, we need some content. We need these blogs, this, can you send a proposal over? I always send it via email to keep it conversational. I'll go like, hey, Izzy, thanks so much for the call. You mentioned that you're really interested in driving new leads. We talked about doing an ebook. Here's what that would look like. Here's the price. If you're interested, I'll send a statement of work right now. And just make it very, very clear so that all they have to do is respond with yes. If you can get it to where they don't have any questions because you've answered exactly what you're going to do, exactly how much it costs, exactly what they'll get, and what the next step is, that you are going to send something to them as opposed to making them do the work, that's a win. And then the one note I'll add here before I change the slide, if they don't like the price, offer to adjust the scope. So if Izzy comes back and says, whoa, Stefan, that ebook price is way too high, they're like, oh, I apologize. I thought that you needed a much longer ebook. We could actually cut it in half and that will reduce the price. And that way you are making sure that if they're going to spend less money, you're going to do less work because frankly, you have better things to do than be bullied on your price. Sometimes you come down a little bit, maybe that's to be expected, but if generally speaking, don't change your price, change the scope. And then we go closing the sale. Always use a virtual tool, in my opinion. Tisper has a contract thing. You can use HelloSign, DocuSign. The 3 things that are really critical here is the confirmation email is only about getting the contract signed. I say, hey, Izzy, I have sent you a contract for your signature via HelloSign. When you sign it, I will send a kickoff email. Because the key lesson, do not do a single shred of work without a signed contract. It does not matter if someone says, I'm just going to send you some stuff to review. Don't start reviewing it until they have a signed contract. Or if you're going to do it out of curiosity, don't tell them. The client needs to understand that you're in a business relationship, and the relationship starts when the contract is signed. And then if they do say, hey, send me that contract, you tell them you did, and then nothing happens for 3 to 5 days, that's an appropriate time to say, hey, I had sent that. Did you receive it? Have you had a chance to sign it yet? Getting it going. So that gives us our homework number 3. And again, we'll send you these slides. Update all of your public accounts. The next one is to either write a blog post, and that could be a guest post or something on your own, your Medium, your LinkedIn, whatever. Or if you're not a writer, participate in a Twitter chat relevant to your focus to start to to know other practitioners, to learn some tricks of the trade, and potentially even close a client. And then I want everyone to find another freelancer to buddy up with and rehearse that call introductory section. Because rehearsing that section of like, hey, Izzy, anything fun and exciting happening? Ha ha, tell a joke. Okay, interesting. For this call, my goals are blah, blah, blah. When you have that down pat, you're going to feel so much more confident in your calls. And also you'll have control of the call, but you'll make sure that your prospect is doing most of the talking. So you can learn about their problems, propose the right solution, and then get down to business. And that, my friends, is the end of our conversation today. But if you do want to go further, if you will indulge me pitching one little bit, Izzy and I are actually working on taking the content of this presentation and doing a fully fledged course. So instead of me just telling you, go write a blog post, we'll actually walk through how to do it. Instead of me just saying, go have a sales call, we'll do one-on-one mentorship to make sure that it's actually working. The other part is I will share all of my templates, all of the things that I've actually used to close multi-$1,000 deals, as well as the contracts that I use that my lawyers have reviewed that are keeping me safe and paid on time. No legal guarantees, of course. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm happy to share what has helped me, and also provide that community and make sure that it's not just me talking at you, but that you get to learn from one another. As a bonus for all you wonderful people who made time to listen to me, we're giving $200 off of the course price to everyone who attended this, if you are interested, and we will send out further details. And by the way, there's zero obligation. So if you just want the presentation here today and that's enough for you, it's free, you signed up, that's awesome, we're gonna send it to you. But if you wanna go deeper and work with me and my voice did not completely bore you to tears, then let's work together, because I would really love to.
A few things I want to mention here is that, first of all, thank you so much, Stefan, for putting all this together. We're really excited to hear all your amazing tips and advice around this. And we do have another little bonus that, Stefan, you mentioned as well about your ebook, right?
Yes, I do. I have a playbook. So the other fun part about this is we said the first 50 registrants were going to get a free copy of the book, and that is absolutely true. But the other part is that every single person here is actually also going to get a copy of the 50 Laws of Freelancing. It's usually a book that the digital retails for, I think, $7.99 on Amazon, but you guys have been really great coming here and showing up, and I want you to have the copy. So that is my little gift to you, to say thank you all for spending your time listening to me.
It is an awesome book. I purchased the physical version of it myself, and it's a really, really good read for anyone here. So make sure you take advantage of that. The beauty of this course that we're planning, we're going to give a lot more details around this, but really we want to take away all the uncertainty around building your freelance business. So you can go and take all this advice and take it home with you and work on it, and that's going to be great. Actually, in fact, come on Twitter and engage with us. Let Stefan know. We pasted our our Twitter links. Let me know if you have any trouble, if you have any questions, anything like that. Let us know. Keep us engaged. Let us know if you have any questions at any point in time, right? But beyond that, if you want to actually be part of a group, it's going to be a tight-knit group. We're only going to let in like 15 people. And if you want us to actually walk you through this 4-week program where we actually help you with your scripts, help you with your prices, all of that kind of stuff, and you really want some help kicking all that off, then definitely take a look at the program we're going to be launching. I'm going to send more details by email tomorrow, and we'll be launching the course next week. So keep an eye out for that. It's going to be absolutely great. So I recognize that we did go a little bit over. I apologize, but we do have a few questions, Stefan, if you're okay with going.
Absolutely.
So we've got one from Paul Chung. Earlier on. Paul is a good friend of mine, actually. He runs a great event called Beer Tasting 101. So if you're actually interested in a beer sommelier showing you stuff, then check out Paul. But Paul wants to know any ideas how to manage having a freelance identity as well as a day job one. I'm not in a position to ditch my day job quite yet.
Yeah, so this was actually me for the first year or a year and a bit of my freelancing. What I did was I went out into the world as a freelancer. So when I was I worked from 9 to 5, and when I wasn't working, I was a freelancer. It was my 5 to 9. That may be different. It depends on the role you're in. So my advice would be, if you have a culture that's a little bit more if not 9 to 5 in hours, but that colloquial 9 to 5 where you're an employee and then you go home, I would just live outside of work as a freelancer. As long as it's not stopping you from doing your job, you should be fine. I will say, just make sure you're okay to run a freelance business outside. Some companies put in their contracts that you're not. It's largely unenforceable, but I don't want to tell you for sure that it's not, because I don't want to get you in trouble. Now, if you are in a situation where you have to represent your brand, what I would recommend is instead to say, be a freelancer in specific communities. So if you're a designer, be a freelancer on Dig. If you're an indie hacker, tech builder, be a freelancer on Indie Hackers, where you can still be open and honest. But if you have to represent your company at conferences, for instance, then of course, represent your company, do your job.
Awesome. So keep asking your questions in the chat, everybody. I've got another question here from Alicia, who asks, to make your portfolio, should I start working for free?
Ooh, I am a strong no on this. I know that not everyone agrees with that. What I would say from a portfolio perspective is, don't work for me for free. Work for yourself for free. So Alicia, could I actually ask, do you mind sharing in the chat what kind of work you do and what kind of portfolio you're trying to build up?
Okay, while Alicia's waiting.
Yeah, and if you're not sharing, that's okay, I'll come back to it.
Oh, Alicia is a market researcher, but now in digital marketing.
Cool, okay. So to give some specific advice there, what I would recommend is pinpoint what you do in digital marketing, because digital marketing is a huge, huge variety of tasks. Again, really think about what you are strong at, and then see what you can do for yourself. So for example, a big part of digital marketing is running paid Twitter ads or paid social media ads. Try and run a few for yourself. Run a $50 campaign if you can afford that, and see what the results are, and keep that up. Maybe it's just going to be something simple like a very easy downloadable whatever, or talk to a friend and say, I will do the labor for free and we can profit share, because then you're still getting compensated for delivering value. I wouldn't recommend that for building a whole career, but if you're just getting started, that's something to do. The other thing, if it's anything that you can build on your own, so if part of your digital marketing is, again, building Shopify stores, go build one. You can get a free 14-day trial, go build one to show yourself, to build a portfolio, because then you get to say, I did this. I was curious, I indulged, I gave it a shot, and it worked or it didn't. But at the very least, you own it, because there's a stronger sense there that you'll actually get way more done than if you just, come up to me and say, I will do everything for you for free to get a portfolio, because that devalues your work. And I don't ever want you to be in a position where you feel that you can't start charging because you haven't started charging.
Great. Then we've got Ava Sky here, who I'm really happy to hear is a high school student who's just starting out in the freelance world. So congratulations for being here and being ambitious. That's awesome, Ava. Ava asks, how can I get people to take me seriously? Because she's in high school.
That's fair. I think so. This is an interesting one because there is often a physical presence look. Some people will look far older or far younger than they are. But I would say two things. The advice that was given to me, I started my first business when I was 23, and I met someone who she was, I think, 38 or 39 and well established in her career. And when she found out that I was 23, she was like, her direct response was, "Are you lying to me?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Never tell anyone your age again. You're going to face age discrimination." So I don't want to be that direct. We were also speaking very privately, but I think the deeper message there was, don't worry about your age. Just to maybe don't put it right at the forefront. But more specifically, if you're worried about people taking you seriously, one of the ways that you can combat that is your demonstrated results. So if you're a graphic designer and you have a gorgeous website, that is going to speak for itself far more than someone who then might later find out that you're still in high school and you're young. I think perhaps maybe don't start your bio with your age or with your school, and don't necessarily start your bio with, "I am a high school student that does this." Just say, "I am a graphic designer," or "I am a X type of freelancer." So that would be my advice there. Is I don't like officially advising don't talk about your age, but unfortunately it's been something that has worked for me to just leave my age in the background and let people make their own assumptions, and then focus all my efforts on my work, on getting my own work out there, and hopefully letting it speak for itself.
Awesome. We've got another one from Matthew, which was earlier on. I don't know if Matthew, you're still here, who asks, how do you know when to focus on an outcome versus being hourly? I'm guessing this is like project fee versus hourly fee.
So I'm a huge fan of productizing everything. So you can just take your hourly fee, multiply it by the number of hours that it's going to take you, and that's your fee. And the reason I say that is because you should not be punished for being fast, nor should your client be punished if you're slow. At the end of the day, if freelancing is about execution, it means that they need to achieve something. Now, sometimes you can't do that. So sometimes you're a freelance consultant and your product is time. In that case, then you sell by the hour and you do that, that's life. But think about everything I believe should be an outcome. And if it requires time to create the outcome, you can use that as one of the levers to set your price.
Nice. We've got also Anna Weltman here, who has a similar woe to Ava, but the opposite, who says, same goes for those of us who are over 40 or way over 40.
So 44. Right? Yeah. That again, so I've experienced the age on the younger side. I haven't experienced it on the older side. So I certainly don't want to seem like I have all the answers here. But what I've learned from actually some folks who have been in the business for 15, 20, 30 years that I've met through Freelance Chat is they take a fantastic no BS approach that I really admire. All the younger folks are like, "Oh, I'm really worried about this." And they're like, "No, if you don't like me, you don't like me, and that's fine." And I like how they come into the world as very confident in what they're up to, but also incredibly willing to be part of conversations and change. So that's what I've seen for them that they have said has helped them maintain relevance and fight ageism, is the concern of just saying, look, this is who I am and this is what I've accomplished, and here's my body of work and here's my focus. And I think too, the folks that I've spoken to who are more experienced have a much more hyper focus that has helped them carve out all of their competitors. It's like, these young these young whippersnappers are doing everything. I am going to deliver amazing value in this one thing, and that's going to be how I maintain my relevance.
Anna's nodding her head. Awesome. Thank you, Anna. So, okay, we've gone a little over. I'm sorry, everybody, for going a little bit over our promised time here. I know that there's a couple more questions, so feel free to shoot us emails or just let us know on Twitter, whatever it is you want to reach. Let us know. We're happy to answer those questions. We'll shoot out all of the rest of the resources and everything we shared. We're going to share the video, we're going to share the slides, and you're going to get Stefan's book. So really exciting stuff for all of you guys. And if you are interested in this course, let us know. I'm going to be sharing resources about that too, but if you have any questions, feel free to let us know. We're really, really excited to put this together. It's going to be great. And thank you all so much for coming. We are so excited to be here and sharing some resources and some tips. Really, what Stefan and I both share is we really love to see people succeed. We really love seeing you, for me, it's building people's careers. For Stefan, it's helping people launch their freelance businesses. We really, at the end of the day, benefit so much and get so much value out of seeing other people grow their businesses, grow their careers, and succeed. And that's really all that we want. And if we can help you do it, it brings us so much joy and it brings us so much fulfillment. So get in touch, let us know. Thank you all so, so much for coming. And Stefan, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us tonight.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone for sharing your time and energy with us tonight. Like, as you said, it's a ton of fun for me. So if you're learning something and have a good time, that is happy days for me. And yes, Patrick, I will say hi to Arthur. He has calmed down. He's in the corner. Oh, you just heard his name. So
awesome. Well, have a good night, everybody. Happy Thursday night. And we will see you again soon. Take care.